Okay, so when you picture someone who's really wealthy, what comes to mind? I bet it's, the fancy suits, maybe a huge house, that kind of thing.
Right, the flashy stuff. Maybe a super expensive watch. It's the image we see everywhere, isn't it? In the media, especially.
Exactly. But what if?
Hmm.
What if that whole picture is just, well, wrong? Fundamentally wrong.
What if the people who actually have, say, $1 million or more net worth, the ones who've really achieved financial security, what if they're driving regular cars like Fords?
Or wearing a simple Timex.
Yeah.
Shopping at TJ Maxx. It seems almost counterintuitive.
That's the surprising reality that Thomas Stanley and William Danko uncovered in their book, The Millionaire Next Door. It's subtitled, The Surprising Secrets of America's Wealthy.
And that's what we're getting into today. We're going to explore this really groundbreaking research. It kind of flips everything you thought you knew about wealth right on its head.
Yeah, it's based on years, decades actually, of detailed research looking at how America's affluent really live and manage their money, not just guesswork or, stereotypes.
So our goal here is to cut through those myths about high spending and look at what actually builds lasting wealth. It's maybe not what you expect. The first thing that really jumps out is a contrast you mentioned. You ask someone, picture a millionaire, and they imagine, I don't know, luxury living.
Yeah, mansions, yachts.
But Stanley and Danko's work, based on talking to hundreds of these people, surveying them, it points to folks living in pretty normal houses, like average value around $275,000 back then, often paid off.
And they're really careful about spending. Very cautious.
It's this low-profile approach that makes them kind of invisible, right? Which is why most of us get it wrong.
Totally. We see someone with a high income, maybe driving a fancy car, living in a huge rented house, and we think, wow, they're rich.
But often they're just high earners with huge debts.
Yeah.
High income isn't the same as high net worth.
Exactly. And the truly wealthy people, the ones with actual financial independence, they're often flying under the radar,
Yeah.
quietly building wealth.
Okay, so let's dig into that definition of wealthy, because the authors are super clear about this, and it changes everything.
Right. They make this great distinction. Wealth isn't chattel, your possessions, your stuff.
The fancy car, the expensive watch.
Yeah, that's chattel. Wealth, they say, is cattle. It's your productive assets, your investments, your business equity, things that grow. It's your net worth.
Net worth. Assets minus liabilities. Simple, but profound.
And their research focused mainly on people with a net worth between $1 and $10 million. This is the group where most people achieve that level of wealth within their own lifetime, not through huge inheritances.
And the scale of wealth back then, around 96 when the book came out, was huge. Over $22 trillion in personal wealth in the U.S.
But here's the kicker. Nearly half of that wealth was owned by just 3.5% of households. Just a tiny fraction.
Wow. That concentration is pretty stark. And it really makes you wonder, how does that 3.5% operate differently?
Which leads right into their main point, their core thesis. It's the foundation, really. Wealth building.
Yeah.
It's less about playing amazing offense, having a massive income.
The big salary, the blockbuster business deal.
Right, that's offense. But wealth is much, much more about playing good defense.
Defense. Meaning
Discipline, saving consistently,
Yeah.
allocating your money and time efficiently. And the big one, frugality, living below your means.
So you could be earning, say, $500,000 a year, amazing offense, but if you're spending $490,000,
Your defense is terrible. You're not actually building wealth. You're just treading water at a very high level.
whereas the people who get rich and stay rich, according to this research,
The vast majority live well below their means. They prioritize growing the net worth, the cattle, over showing off the stuff, the chattel. That's the fundamental shift in perspective.
okay, let's tackle that millionaire look head on then, because it really is mostly a myth, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Stanley and Danko tell this great story about a vice president at a bank's trust department. He was hosting a focus group talking to actual millionaires,
And he was confused.
totally baffled, because they didn't look like he thought millionaires should look. They weren't flashy.
Meanwhile, he was the one spending a fortune on fancy suits and like a $5,000 watch, trying to project this image he thought rich people had.
Exactly. And the irony was the actual millionaires in the room, most of them, about 80% in their surveys, were first-generation rich. They built it themselves.
Through discipline, not just spending.
Right. They saw money as something to nurture and grow, not just spend to impress people.
The spending data they collected is just It's kind of mind-blowing when you compare it to common assumptions. It shows how much the rest of us might overspend trying to copy an image the real wealthy don't even care about.
Let's run through some specifics because they really drive it home. Take suits. What do you think the average millionaire spends on a suit?
I don't know. Thousands. Custom made.
Get this. Half of the millionaires they surveyed had never spent more than $399 on their most expensive suit, ever.
$399 for their most expensive suit.
Yep, half of them. People who could easily drop thousands without blinking. And only about 1 in 10 had ever spent $1,000 or more on a suit.
That's really something. You can barely get a decent off-the-rack suit for $400 these days in some places.
And watches. Same story. Half of them never spent more than $235 on a wristwatch.
$235. That's like a basic Seiko or Timex, maybe.
Which pretty much. Only about a quarter of them had ever spent over $1,125. So that trust officer with his $5,000 watch, he was signaling high spending, not high net worth.
It's a completely different signal than he thought he was sending.
And it goes on. Shoes. Half never spent more than $140. So the question becomes, who is buying all the expensive stuff? The $1,000 suits, the luxury cars.
And the answer is
Often, it's the high-income non-millionaires. The people earning good money, maybe $50K to $200K back then, but trying desperately to look successful. Corporate managers, lawyers, people feeling the pressure to keep up appearances.
the keeping up with the Joneses effect, but on a higher income level.
Exactly. They're earning well, but they feel they have to spend it on status symbols, which drives up their costs and makes it almost impossible to actually accumulate wealth.
The research found, what was it? For every millionaire with a $1,000 suit, there are 6 non-millionaires earning good incomes who own one.
Something like that, yeah. It just shows that high consumption is often a sign of weak financial defense, not actual wealth.
Which brings us back to that core principle.
Frugal, frugal, frugal. Those were the 3 words they said define the affluent.
But it's important how they define frugal, right? It's not about being a miser or depriving yourself.
No, not at all. They define it as economy in the use of resources. Basically, being efficient, not being wasteful. It's the opposite of hyperconsumption.
Being deliberate with your money, making it work for you instead of just letting it flow out.
Precisely. And this idea is central to how they categorize people, the PAWs versus the UAWs.
Right, PAWs and UAWs. Prodigious accumulators of wealth and under-accumulators of wealth. Explain that.
It's a really clever way they measured wealth-building efficiency. It's not just about how much money you have, but how well you're doing relative to your income and age.
Okay, how does it work?
They have a simple formula. You take your age, multiply it by your pre-tax annual income, and then divide by 10. That number is your expected net worth.
Okay, example. Someone is 40, earns $100,000 a year. 40 times $100,000 is $4 million. Divide by 10. $400,000. That's their expected net worth.
Exactly. Now, a PAW prodigious accumulator is someone whose actual net worth is at least twice that expected number. So in your example, $800,000 or more. Often, PAWs have 4 times or more.
So they're punching way above their weight in terms of wealth building.
Right. And a UAW under accumulator is someone whose net worth is less than half of what's expected. So less than $200,000 in that example.
Even if they have a high income.
Especially then. That's the danger zone. A doctor earning $500K a year but only having $200K in net worth, that's a UAW. Their high income hides the fact they're not building real wealth.
They use that example of a pro athlete making like $5 million a year.
Yeah. If that athlete spends like crazy and only has $1 million in net worth, technically they're a millionaire. But on the PAW UAW...
Oh, it's a massive UAW.
Yeah.
Because given their income, they should have way, way more saved and invested.
Their amazing offense is basically canceled out by zero defense. It makes the high income almost irrelevant for long-term security. Hashtag 3, the 7 factors of wealth builders.
What's great about Stanley and Danko's work is they didn't just point out the problem, they identified the patterns. They found these common threads among the PAWs.
Yeah, they boiled it down to 7 key factors. And what's striking is how much they're about behavior and discipline, not some secret investment trick.
It really underscores that building wealth is more about your habits than just your IQ or getting lucky.
Definitely. So the 7 factors they found common among wealth builders are:
1, they live well below their means. That's the frugality piece again.
2, they allocate their time, energy, and money efficiently towards building wealth, specifically.
3, they believe financial independence is more important than showing off high social status. Big one.
4, their parents typically did not provide ongoing financial handouts, what the authors call economic outpatient care, or EOC. We'll get back to that.
5, Following from that, their own adult children are economically self-sufficient.
6. They're good at spotting market opportunities, both in business and for their own spending. Smart shoppers, smart investors.
And 7, they chose the right occupation. And interestingly, that often meant being self-employed.
So let's unpack that second point a bit, allocating time, energy, and money efficiently. That's where the defense really comes into play, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about the practical stuff. Budgeting, planning, things that maybe don't sound glamorous but are crucial.
PAWs don't just stumble into wealth. They manage their finances actively, like a business manages its operations.
And the data on budgeting is interesting. You sometimes hear advice like, oh, if you save enough, you don't need a budget. But that's not what they found among millionaires.
Not really. For every 100 millionaires in their study who didn't budget, there were 120 who did. So more budgeters than non-budgeters.
It suggests budgeting isn't just for people struggling. It's a tool the wealthy use to stay on track.
And they know their numbers. Almost 2/3, like 62%, knew exactly how much their families spend each year on the big three: food, clothing, and housing.
That's detailed tracking. Most people, even high earners, probably couldn't tell you that with any accuracy.
Right. The UAWs, the under-accumulators, often just assume their high income covers everything, so why track it? That's a mistake.
But what about the millionaires who don't do a detailed budget? There must be some.
There are. But they typically use a different, equally disciplined system. It's the pay-yourself-first strategy, but hardcore.
How?
They mandate investing a set portion of their income, usually at least 15% before any other bills get paid. It's automatic compulsory saving.
So they lock in their savings and investment first, and then they live off whatever's left.
Exactly. It's defense by default, almost. It puts a hard ceiling on their consumption spending. Once the leftover money is gone, it's gone.
That's a pretty powerful way to prevent lifestyle creep, where your spending just rises to meet your income.
It is. And maintaining this kind of discipline, whether through budgeting or forced saving, takes time and attention.
The time allocation factor. How much time do PAWs actually spend on their finances?
On average, they found PAWs spend about 8.4 hours per month planning their investments and managing their finances.
Okay, 8.4 hours a month. That's like a couple hours a week. Manageable.
Yeah, it's about 1.2% of their total time. They treat it like a necessary part of their routine, like going to the gym or managing a key part of their business.
And how does that compare to the UAWs, the under-accumulators?
UAWs spend much less time, only about 4.6 hours per month on average.
Only about half as much time. Doesn't sound like a huge difference. Maybe 4 hours a month.
But it represents a fundamental difference in approach. PAWs have a regular, consistent routine. It's proactive.
While UAWs are more
Reactive. They might fall into what the authors called shock planning.
shock planning.
Yeah, like the stock market drops, or they get a big unexpected bill and suddenly they panic. They might create a strict budget for a few weeks.
But then it feels too restrictive, and they drift back to their old spending habits.
Exactly. It's inconsistent. It's driven by fear or crisis, not by a steady long-term plan. PAWs build a sustainable system. UAWs often try quick fixes that don't stick.
These concepts of PAW and UAW become really vivid when you look at the real-life examples they give. The contrast between Dr. North and Dr. South is just fascinating.
Oh, yeah, that's a powerful one. Two doctors, both earning great incomes, over $700,000 a year back then. Huge offense.
But wildly different outcomes. Let's start with Dr. South. He's the UAW, right?
Textbook UAW. Despite making tons of money, he's constantly stressed. Worried about keeping up his lifestyle, worried about his net worth actually going down. He's trapped.
Why? What's he spending on?
He's living like someone who earns twice what he actually makes. Hyperconsumption.
Okay, break it down. Where does $700K go?
Well, $30,000 a year just on clothes. Remember that $399 suit average for millionaires? He's way past that.
30 grand on clothes. Okay, what else?
$72,200 a year on cars, including a Porsche that's losing value fast. Plus, a massive $107,000 a year just on mortgage payments for a huge high-status house.
Wow. So his fixed costs are enormous. What's his actual net worth then?
Barely $400,000. And get this, less than $40,000 saved in his retirement plan.
Ouch. On a $700K income, that's really not good. He's basically working just to pay his bills, even at that income level.
He's a servant to his lifestyle. Now, contrast that with Dr. North, the PAW, same income level, roughly.
But totally different approach. What's he doing?
He invests almost 40% of his pre-tax income. 40%. And crucially, his family lives like a household earning only about 1/3 of his actual income.
So way below his means. Does he drive a Porsche?
Nope. Drives a sensible used car, well-maintained. lives in a nice but not ostentatious house, focuses on efficiency
And the result?
and financially. Net worth, $7.5 million. He's financially secure, way less stressed, happier.
$7.5 million versus $400,000 on the same income. That's incredible.
And think about taxes. When they discussed potential tax increases, Dr. North wasn't too worried. His tax bill was only about 4% of his total net worth, a small dent.
But for Dr. South,
His tax bill ate up like 75% of his tiny net worth. Any increase would hit him much harder. He's incredibly vulnerable.
that really illustrates the power of building that net worth base. The PAW grows the denominator so big that the numerator taxes, spending feels small. The UAW just focuses on the income and spending.
Exactly. And you see that same UAW trap with another character they profile, Mr. Friend.
Mr. Friend. High income, over $200, but low net worth. What's his story?
His whole definition of being better off was tied to visible status. Expensive cars, huge house in an upscale neighborhood, the big mortgage that came with it.
So, similar to Dr. South, just maybe on a slightly smaller scale.
Yeah. And his motivation. He actually used fear to drive himself. Fear of not making enough money to cover his huge debts. He was, as the authors put it, possessed by possessions.
Working hard just to impress other people and keep the illusion going sounds stressful.
Extremely. He wasn't building security, he was building anxiety.
And they use his parents to make a point about overlooking small amounts, right? The smoking example.
Oh, that one is powerful. His parents always felt financially strapped, said they had no money to invest yet.
They smoke cigarettes regularly.
Right. Over their lifetimes, the authors estimated they spent about $33,190 on cigarettes, which, interestingly, was more than they paid for their house.
Wow. Okay, $33,000 over a lifetime. That's significant, but maybe doesn't sound life-changing until you factor in compounding.
Exactly. This is where UAW thinking often misses the mark. If that same $33,190 spent in small bits over 46 years had just been put into a basic stock market index fund,
What would have grown to?
almost $100,000. Pretty good return on cigarette money.
Okay,
Yeah.
impressive. But that's not even the most startling calculation.
No, the truly mind-blowing part is what if they'd invested that same money in the stock of a major tobacco company over that period, reinvesting the dividends?
Given the performance of those stocks back then.
That $33,190 would have grown to over $2 million.
$2 million.
Yeah.
From not buying cigarettes and investing the difference.
Yeah. It just perfectly illustrates how small, consistent, disciplined choices moving from consumption to investment can lead to massive wealth over time, even without a huge income. It's about behavior, not genius.
And this frugal defensive mindset shows up in big purchases too, like cars.
Definitely. They looked at how millionaires buy cars and found different types, but one group stood out for financial success: the used vehicle-prone shopper.
Okay, people who prefer buying used cars. About 20% of the millionaires fell into this group.
Roughly, yeah. And they are serious bargain hunters. They paid way less for their recent car average, around $22,500, much lower than other high earners.
And it's a deliberate strategy for them.
Absolutely. They choose to buy used specifically to avoid that huge depreciation hit you take when you drive a new car off the lot. They see that as wasted money.
They figure their time is better spent on other things than haggling over a new car price.
Right. Let someone else pay for the biggest drop in value. This strategy pays off big time. This group had the highest ratio of net worth to income.
What was the ratio?
$17.20 in net worth for every $1 of annual income. 17 times. That's phenomenal wealth-building efficiency.
It really shows how that consistent defensive approach across all spending areas adds up. These are the same people shopping at discount stores too, right?
Yep. It's a whole lifestyle built around value and efficiency, not status and consumption. And it clearly works for building net worth.
Okay, so we've seen how PAWs build wealth themselves. But what happens when wealth gets passed down? This is where the authors introduce a really provocative idea: economic outpatient care, EOC.
Yeah, this section is fascinating and maybe a little uncomfortable for some. EOC is basically ongoing financial support that affluent parents give to their adult children.
Not just inheritances, but regular help. Like what?
Like helping with down payments on houses, maybe paying the mortgage sometimes, covering private school tuition for grandkids, giving cash gifts for cars or vacations, basically subsidizing their lifestyle.
Sounds like parents just trying to help their kids out. What's the problem?
Well, the research found a really sharp irony. Parents who provide a lot of this EOC, they actually end up with significantly less wealth themselves compared to other affluent parents whose kids are financially independent.
Huh. because they're constantly giving money away instead of letting it compound.
Exactly. It acts like a slow leak in their own financial reservoir, but the really damaging part is often the effect it has on the kids receiving it.
How so? Doesn't give them a head start?
You'd think so. But the data showed the opposite, especially for cash gifts used for consumption. Adult children who got regular EOC tended to have lower net worth A&D, lower annual incomes than their peers in the same jobs who didn't get handouts.
Lower income, too. That's surprising. Give me an example.
Okay, they looked at accountants in their early 50s. The ones who had received substantial EOC from parents. Their net worth was only about 57% of the net worth of accountants who hadn't received gifts.
Wow, almost half the net worth.
And get this, the gift recipients also earned only about 78% as much income per year as the non-recipients.
So the financial help seemed to make them less wealthy and less productive in their careers.
That's what the data suggests. The theory is that EOC can dampen initiative. If you always have a safety net, if mom and dad will bail you out or subsidize your lifestyle,
You maybe don't hustle as hard. You don't learn to budget, save, and build things yourself. It becomes a habit.
precisely. It can become habit-forming, weakening the very people the parents are trying to help. They intend to get the youngsters going, but it can create long-term dependency.
They have that case study of Mary and Lamar.
Right. They live this fancy lifestyle on a modest $60 K income. However, Mary's mother pays for everything else, private school, mortgage help, even gives them stock to sell every few years so they can buy a new car.
They're completely insulated from financial reality, living in a bubble funded by EOC. They've likely never learned the discipline needed to build their own wealth.
Zero discipline required. And then there's the story of the two sisters, Sarah and Alice. That really highlights the different paths.
Okay, tell me about them.
Their father was wealthy. Sarah was the independent one. Left home, built her own successful career, became a PAW herself. Her father actually seemed to resent her independence a bit.
He wanted her to need him more.
Maybe. Alice, the other sister, was the favorite. She stayed close, received lots of EOC her whole life, never really learned financial discipline.
So what happened when the father passed away?
Alice got most of the inheritance, but she and her husband were classic UAWs big spenders. They burned through the entire inheritance very quickly.
Oh, wow. All that wealth gone.
Yep. And in the end, it was Sarah, the self-made, non-subsidized sister, who had to step in and set up educational trusts for Alice's kids because, as Sarah put it, they knew nothing about money.
So the father's kindness in providing EOC actually ended up disabling his favorite daughter financially.
It seems so. It underscores the idea that true help involves fostering independence and, maybe counterintuitively, allowing for some struggle. The authors talk about courage.
Courage. How does that fit in?
Courage is about mental strength when facing difficulty or risk. You can't really develop courage if you're completely protected from all risk, especially financial risk.
They studied an entrepreneur, Mrs. BPF.
Yes. Her parents didn't just fund her business, they provided economic inpatient care. She lived rent-free, they paid for everything.
Yep.
Total insulation from risk.
And the result?
She had 12 major financial fears. Things like her business failing, not being able to retire. This was 4 times the number of fears reported by typical self-made affluent business owners who had faced risk.
So even though she had every advantage on paper, she lacked the psychological resilience, the courage that comes from overcoming challenges.
Exactly. She never built that inner fortitude because she never had to. The EOC, meant to help, actually made her more fearful and less equipped psychologically.
So what did the successful affluent parents, the ones who raised independent PAW kids, do differently?
They followed certain rules, often implicitly. First, they generally never told their children outright that the family was wealthy, kept it low-key.
Interesting. Why?
To avoid creating a sense of entitlement, maybe, keep them motivated. Second, they taught discipline and frugality by example. They lived it themselves.
Walk the walk.
And third, they emphasized achievement, what you accomplish, what you build over the symbols of success, like fancy cars or clothes. There's that great quote from one father.
Hen's father.
The physician.
The physician.
Yeah. He told his son, "I am not impressed with what people own, but I'm impressed with what they achieve." That's a PAW mindset right there, achievement over consumption.
That focus makes a lot of sense. And this understanding even impacts how they plan their estates.
It does. Many high net worth PAWs choose to use objective, third-party professionals like lawyers or CPAs as co-executors of our estates, even if they trust their kids.
Why involve outsiders?
It's a defensive move. They recognize that money can bring out weird family dynamics, old rivalries, especially if there were unequal levels of EOC given over the years. Having a neutral professional helps manage the process fairly and prevents the inheritance from tearing the family apart. They know, as one put it, when money's involved, what can happen. Hashtag tag C6. Occupations and targeting opportunities.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about defense frugality, planning, avoiding EOC. What about the offense side? How do PAWs typically earn their incomes? Is there a pattern there?
There's a very strong pattern. One of the clearest findings in the book is the huge advantage of being self-employed.
Really, working for yourself is better for becoming a millionaire.
The data was overwhelming. Self-employed people, business owners, professionals with their own practice were 4 times more likely to be millionaires than people who worked for someone else.
4 times. That's
Yeah.
a massive difference. What percentage of millionaires were self-employed?
Over 2/3 of the non-retired millionaires in their study were self-employed.
Why such a big advantage?
Control, mainly. You control both the income potential, the offense, and crucially, the expenses, the defense. You're running the whole show.
But the authors are careful to say it's not just being self-employed, right? The type of person matters more.
Absolutely critical point. The character of the business owner, their discipline, their frugality, their efficiency, that's more important than the specific type of business. You can own a plumbing business or a medical practice, but if you're a UAW spender, the income won't stick.
Makes sense. But did they find certain types of businesses or professions were more common among millionaires? The right occupation?
They did notice trends. Affluent parents often encourage their kids towards becoming self-employed professionals. Doctors, dentists, lawyers, accountants with their own practices.
Why those specifically?
Generally, they have high profitability rates, relatively lower startup capital needed compared to, say, manufacturing, and often lower failure rates. It's a statistically safer path to high income.
They had some numbers on profitability, didn't they? Comparing doctors' offices to coal mining.
Yeah, it was striking. Something like 87% of physicians' offices were profitable as sole proprietorships. Coal mining, only about 34% profitable.
Even though coal mining could potentially generate huge revenues for a lucky few.
Right, but the efficiency of generating profit was much higher in professional services. A doctor's office needed way less revenue to generate the same amount of profit as the average coal mine. It's just a more efficient business model, often.
So self-employment, often in professional services, is one path. What's the other main strategy they saw for building wealth?
The other big one was basically profiting from the affluent, serving the needs of wealthy people or their heirs.
So targeting that specific market niche. As wealth grows and gets transferred, there's more demand for specialized services.
Exactly. These are people who are good at spotting those market opportunities, factor number 6. On the defense side, for the wealthy, you see specialists thriving.
Like who?
Estate planning attorneys, tax lawyers, they help the wealthy protect their assets, play defense against taxes, ensure smooth transfers. Also, asset liquidators, auctioneers, appraisers, coin dealers who help heirs turn inherited stuff into cash, often because the heirs are UAWs who need the money.
Okay, so serving the defensive needs. What about the consumption side?
There are opportunities there, too, catering to the spending habits, especially of the high-income UAWs. Think cosmetic dentists, plastic surgeons, luxury travel agents planning those fancy family trips. They tap into that desire for status and high consumption.
They give the example of Mr. W, the equipment distributor. He wasn't serving the wealthy directly in his main business, was he?
No, but he cleverly used his own accumulated wealth to profit from the mindset of status-seeking UAWs. He got into luxury real estate on the side.
How did that work?
He wasn't buying mansions to live in. He'd use his capital to buy, say, multiple luxury condo units in bulk, sometimes from developers needing quick cash. He got good deals.
Okay, so he bought low, then what?
Then he'd turn around and sell those individual units to upper-middle-class buyers, the doctors, lawyers, managers who were desperate for the status of living in a prestigious building or neighborhood, the UAWs.
So he understood his target market was motivated more by the image in the address than by the underlying financial sense.
Precisely. He was basically capitalizing on their status anxiety, their need to display success. He played the paw, using his financial defense to build capital, then used that capital to profit from the weak financial defense of others. It's a fascinating dynamic. Hashtag Texasm. Outro.
Wow. This exploration of the Millionaire Next Door really does turn conventional wisdom upside down, doesn't it? The idea that wealth isn't about flash, but about quiet discipline.
It's incredibly powerful. If you're serious about financial security, the lessons here are, I think, non-negotiable.
So let's boil it down. What are the absolute key takeaways for someone listening?
I'd say three things stand out. First, real wealth is built primarily through defense. That means frugality, planning, consistent saving, not just chasing a high income. Offense matters, but defense wins championships, financially speaking.
Okay, defense first. Second.
Second, high consumption is the enemy. It doesn't matter how much you earn. If you spend it all, especially on depreciating status symbols, you won't accumulate lasting wealth. It's the UAW trap.
And third.
Third, foster genuine self-reliance. Avoid the trap of economic outpatient care, both giving it in ways that create dependency and receiving it to the point where it dampens your own drive. True independence, for you and your kids, is invaluable.
It really is about playing the long game. I keep thinking about that auctioneer they interviewed.
Yeah, the one who became super frugal because she'd seen a woman literally crying as all her possessions were sold off in a bankruptcy auction.
That image clearly stuck with her.
Yeah.
It drove her desire for independence, for security, visualizing that long-term freedom instead of just the next purchase.
That's the PAW motivation often. It's not always about getting rich in the flashy sense. It's about getting free. Free from financial worry. Free from the need to constantly earn more just to tread water.
So maybe the final question for everyone listening, the provocative thought to chew on, is this. What are you working so hard for?
Right. Are you working primarily to earn money, to spend it, to maintain a certain image or status level, basically feeding that consumption treadmill?
Are you working hard to build assets, to play defense, to ultimately free yourself from the need to keep working endlessly? Are you building security or just servicing your lifestyle?
It's a fundamental choice. Prioritizing offense versus prioritizing defense. And according to Stanley and Danko's research, the path you choose makes all the difference to your long-term financial well-being.
A powerful choice indeed.
If you enjoyed today's discussion, be sure to subscribe and visit fatterwallets.com for more content, resources, and tools to help you live wisely and build wealth with purpose.